Hello and welcome to today's community call. My name is Ugur. I have two of our co-founders with me here today, Burak and Sasha. And just for the format for today, you might have realized we didn't send out a form or anything. We are just going to have an open conversation, so to speak, or like an open community call where you can drop us questions right away. We have general talking points that we can throw in to let you know about that we want to talk about here within this call. But generally speaking, you can ask us anything you want to ask us, except for the usual things. So we're not going to be talking about prizes in any way. We're not going to be talking about exchanges, and also obviously not going to giving out any specific date for major announcements. Yeah. With that being said, anything you guys want to add, Sasha or Burak?
Nope.
All right, then I guess until we gather some questions, the first thing I want to throw out there is that in about 4 weeks, we are going to be attending ETHCC. It's an Ethereum community conference in Paris. We're going to have a booth there. We're sponsors. We have about 5 people there or 6. And we're going to be there for questions or if you guys want to chat with us, going to be networking with other people. So generally speaking, if you guys are in Europe or maybe flying to Europe, we're more than like happy to meet you guys, have a chat, and just generally show some presence at such events. Anything else?
I mean, I won't be attending this one, so I don't know what to say. So,
yeah, but generally speaking, it's more of our European-based team members that are going to be there, and you guys can approach us with whatever you want to approach us with. So, any comment? We don't have any comments yet, so maybe we wait another minute or two. Anything else you guys want to bring up in the meantime?
We had a bit of an outline prepared. Are we bringing that up now?
Yeah, sure.
Bring that up
sure, after? You can whenever you feel like. So the first thing about the growth of the respective teams, I guess this goes more into that you guys can give maybe about the technical side. I can talk about the BD side and also marketing side to cover that side a bit. So if you want to start, you can go right ahead.
Maybe Burak should start with the growth of the technical team. How many people have in total?
Yeah, I think the more important thing is like growth shouldn't be looked at from the perspective of people, because you can't just grow by just having more and more people in a completely flat way, because at some point you stop being able to work together efficiently. So you need to be both wide and deep, which means some kind of fractalization, as in the post. So, I mean, a way to achieve that is having multiple teams in the DAO, each doing their own thing. And then this is partially what we already do in regarding how the business development teams are structured. And then I think we have like 5, 6, 7 teams right now. And then to be able to handle more people, we need to increase the number of these teams a bit more. And then it could be foreseen that at some point these will grow into sub-DAOs, or I think it's more likely for I think it's more likely for DAOs to have existing stakeholders like teams. So it would be more like, say there's a technical team, they would be a part of a sub-DAO, but they wouldn't turn into the sub-DAO, but rather they would be a part of it, and then API3 would be a stakeholder in that Subdial, that kind of a thing. So yeah, from a high level point of view, I could say this about growth.
Okay. Maybe Sasha, did you have anything to add? Otherwise, I would.
Yeah, I guess Bork is kind of talking high level because this is something we talked about in the white paper and also several blog posts about how we see the DAO growing, and especially like kind of using the term fractalization, like having one certain task become too large to be voted on by the entire DAO. It makes sense to kind of create this sub-DAO. So we're already kind of seeing that. So I don't know if this is what Burak was alluding to, but we're going to start having, right now it's like one technical team, and it looks like we're probably going to split that off into two, one a little bit smaller than the other, and just working solely on decentralized APIs. Because it's quite separate for we've kind of noticed that it's quite a separate task from everything else, and it just makes sense in this context because once the team grows too large, people are doing completely different things, and it just makes sense to split and have one smaller team kind of working on a very separate, specific task. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. You want to add something, Burak, or because?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So I think it makes a lot of sense for teams to be spawned out of teams rather than them being added to the DAO externally. I don't think that it works that well. So if you say, for example, if you have like 3 people from like that didn't have any connection to the DAO making a proposal saying that we want to become this team that will do this for the DAO, that is not as like that wouldn't work as well as at least one or more people that is already in one of the existing teams founding that new team, and then it could be like a combination from the existing teams. It could include other external members, but the main point is that if you have that culture and I guess the biological context in that team, like it would, I guess, work a lot better with API3 DAO than an external team would.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned biology because to me the picture in my head is like you've seen cells splitting, like when you yeah makes sense.
I mean, just to pick up from the marketing and also BD side, we're seeing, I want to say, similar things in the BD API team, for instance, since we have somewhat technically people that have been working as a business developer, but now, so to speak, looking at the technical side of the things and becoming a small team that is looking more on the integration side of things. And I think generally speaking, a lot of people are also finding new roles within the organization where they really excelled at one part and then becoming the leaders or maybe joining another team to focus their attention towards. And I think just from a numbers game, because Burak has been more about scaling, from a numbers game, we also gained like a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, especially on the business development side, I feel like. And also on the marketing side. So maybe just to throw that into the mix also.
By the way, I think that's pretty interesting how that happened. The integrations, the technical integrations team from the business development team, because the thing is, I tried very hard to create that team within the core technical team. So I tried to hire for integration people. I tried to hire a technical manager for that. And then it didn't really work out, but then it happened spontaneously in the business development team. And then it ended up being better than anything that could have been designed. So it is very nice to see that like problems solve themselves on their own.
Yeah. Maybe also here, so to speak, shout out to some people that are not on the screen very much, to Cameron and Jacob that are actively working on our, so to speak, integration side of things. And like Burak mentioned, interest in it sprung out of the BD API team, was actively just talking to API providers and then started to bring us along in another way, so to speak. Yeah. I think that covers the teams if we don't have anything else. And we have some questions. Maybe we address those first before we go down that brief list that we made. Euphorical asks, will API3 integrate into multiple blockchains? Interoperability is a key feature, key for the future. And I think this is Burak's most favorite topic with Subdials.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure if it is accurate to call this interoperability, because, I mean, when you integrate to another blockchain, is that interoperation, or are you operating there natively? I think in most cases, people just integrate with an off-chain, a centralized team, and then serve there natively. And it's then really not interoperability in that. Like there is no interoperability between the Ethereum mainnet and that chain. It is just a centralized company that is serving both of the chains. So I wouldn't call that interoperability per se. So yeah, I think the way for that to happen is, like, as Ugur says, like I like talking about this because I actually saw this as like a huge problem, because I mean, oracles are the whole point of an oracle is to do an integration, and then integrations by nature are not scalable in that you need to do each of them one by one. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything to do. Like if things were automatically interoperable, you wouldn't need to do integration. So the definition of integration is doing something manually that is like case specific for the two things to be integrated. And then again, that is by definition not scalable when you try to do it from a centralized core. And then that is why those centralized companies serving multiple chains, they don't scale at all, because essentially they cannot satisfy the chains that they are aiming to serve, because, yeah, as I said, you just have to do each of them individually, and then you don't have the resources. And if you hire, say, for example, 100 integration engineers and do all of them, that will end up being extremely inefficient. So the way to do that is in a more decentralized way, because decentralization, I think it is actually very good for resource efficiency. So, for example, if you want to serve on another chain, if you do that natively on that chain by a decentralized team, essentially, and a more independent team, they will know how to use the resources on that chain, on that ecosystem a lot better. So, for example, if we were doing integrations to this random chain, and then we have this integration team, we do the integration, we do everything, and then we fund everything. But if we, for example, had a Subdial there that is doing the integration, and then the Subdial is native people of the ecosystem, they would be applying for a grant from that smart contract platform, because they have to make things happen. This is how essentially entrepreneurship works. And then when you do it centrally, you just assume that, okay, there's a job to be done. I will be paying for it. What am I going to get out of it? But when you use entrepreneurs, they end up being a lot more efficient. So, and then you can have like an infinite number of them, because there is nothing. If you have a Subdial doing an integration on a chain, that doesn't stop you from spawning another Subdial doing another integration on another chain at all. Like they're completely independent. And the main problem with the blockchain industry is capital inefficiency. There are all these projects that amass a huge amount of capital, and then they cannot do anything with that. Like they want to throw money at problems, but then that money doesn't end up doing anything. And then you have this like huge capital, and then an undelivered project, and unexecuted white paper, and then at some point people get bored of it and then move on to another project. So I think this kind of a fractalized structure would help a lot with it, and it is especially important in the Oracle context, because this is where this happens in a much more emphasized way.
Perfect. Sasha, anything you want to add there, or? All right. Maybe for the new people that joined, we're having more of an open discussion today, so you can ask us, as always, anything without the prices, exchanges, or specific dates for major announcements. I'm just going to take the second question. How's Chain API coming along? I mean, we don't have Andre here, but you guys should be in the loop, right?
I am I'm very much in the loop. Yeah, so this is actually one of the better questions to ask in these community calls, because we don't talk about it at all. So for example, in development updates, I don't really mention it. And one of the reasons is that it's not really the core technical team working on it. So, and then the development reports are for the core, it's supposed to be for the core technical team. So, so that's one reason. Another reason is that we approach its development from a project-based perspective. So we essentially just list some deliverables, and then the project or a specific phase of it will be done when these deliverables are executed. So it is less like a team operating month by month, more like a project that needs to be finished. And then we don't really want to reveal anything before it is actually finished, because essentially it's not a cyclical development process. It is it's more like a waterfall, I guess. So there is, I think, a good time to reveal it, and it's not now. But I can say that it is going very well in terms of it is. I find it very easy to use. The UX is great. The design looks very nice, and then it will it will actually help a lot with our internal processes regarding API integration, for example. Right now, for example, for the hackathon, I think Noah was building something essentially to hold Chain API's place. And this is actually pretty, I guess, validating in that, when he looks at the thing, he thinks that something like Chain API should exist for this to work. So it is actually nice that we are actually building that, and it's going very well. And then we will be releasing the first phase of it, which will only include the API integrations and the deployment of the AR node. But then the rest of it is at least as important, and we will be developing that afterwards. But then we already designed a large part of it, or at least we know as a concept what it's going to look like. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to disclosing more details about it.
Perfect. Thanks for that question. Okay, just going to mention this because this is the next comment. We won't be talking about a specific date about the DAO launch. So, and prices are also something that we do not mention or talk about. So, Sasha, is there a topic you want to bring up, or?
No, not really. Sorry. Maybe I should have prepared a topic.
No, otherwise we can just, because you mentioned the hackathon, I can maybe give a small 1 or 2 sentences to it. It is still ongoing. We made an announcement with it. It's the Sovereign Hackathon, where we also supply, so to speak, 2 single API air nodes. Finage and Heimdall, one like a financial data assets provider, financial assets data provider, and the other one being more of a social media metrics. And you can essentially build something on Sovereign and, so to speak, win prizes for it. We have some prize pools, and it is all very much laid out in our article about it. And yeah, if you're, so to speak, want to engage with it, maybe build something cool, this is definitely the way to try this out and engage one-on-one with Airnode. Great.
I think it was also very good, like integration practice in that. So it is essentially integrating to a chain, which then I think it revealed some issues, which were not Airnode source, but rather essentially when a chain is Ethereum compatible, EVM based, or whatever term is being used, it normally doesn't behave exactly as Ethereum itself. And then unless someone actually tries building stuff on it and then realizes that some aspects are not working, some aspects are not behaving correctly, etc., then, and this is more for less polished or less Ethereum-like chains, I guess. But then if you don't do that, then the integration that you thought you did may not actually work. And then nobody knows about it because nobody used it, nobody's tried using it. And this is, I think, a very common pattern in blockchains, in that someone builds something and then nobody uses it, and then people assume it's fine. But it's not even a problem that it's fine. It's not fine because nobody's going to use it anyway, kind of a thing. And then again, this Subdial is the solution to that, because if your whole reason of existence is to do this integration and then have it used, then you sure will know that if it's working correctly and if there are any problems, etc.
Great. I guess we'll take the next question from Murat Kalkan. I'm not quite sure what is meant with history.
Date.
Okay, if it's the date, then we can't really be talking about it. But maybe we'll use this question, so to speak, to talk maybe about some of the staking information that we can give out. I guess we talked about it like quite briefly in some, and to some extent during the last couple of community calls. And you, Burak, also started an article series going into the whole rationale behind it. But yeah, maybe I'll just throw you a curveball and let you talk about the stuff you want to talk about regarding staking.
I think people are more interested in the mechanics, like when am I going to be able to stake? How will it happen? Like what it will look like? Essentially, the whole process. So, I mean, yeah, as an introduction, the whole point of staking, especially at this stage, is to decentralize governance. So the whole point is that you stake your tokens and then you receive some rewards, which will be unlocked 1 year later. And then this forces you to govern the project in a way that it maximizes the token price in a year, also considering your whatever rewards you get. So yeah, essentially, and then the 1 year locking thing is essential. And I think in general, these decentralized governance schemes where there are staking rewards, but then they're paid out immediately, they just wouldn't work because there is no game theoretic incentive for you to behave in favor of the project. So yeah, I had a point, but I forgot about it. So I'll just start about like what staking looks like. So yeah, as I've mentioned before, it auto compounds. So you don't need to do anything to claim rewards. So you stake, you start receiving rewards, and then you don't have to do anything about it. So essentially what you can do is you can stake, forget about it, come back to it in a year, and then it is still there accruing rewards. And it's actually pretty similar to how Airnode works, or like for an API provider, because you do the integration, you deploy it, and then you don't think about it again. And then you come back to it and it's still working. And I'm saying this because I had built a prototype pretty early. I think this was even like at the beginning of 2020. I just replaced an existing Oracle in an example project with a serverless Oracle that was essentially the POC for Airnode. And then the problem is I came back to it like 6 months later, something like that, and then it's still working. And then I realized that I actually probably should be taking this down. But then I'm looking at my like AWS accounts, going through them, but I cannot find my deployment. So it has deployed somewhere and it's working all this month without even monitoring or doing anything about it. And then I couldn't take it down for a while. So yeah, so I think that is a pretty important pattern that like should be designed for, essentially. Like you shouldn't ask too much from the user, otherwise it will not be used. And then this also applies for staking.
Yeah. Maybe
So,
just
yes.
to throw this in here, because somebody asked that right away.
Yeah, yes.
Will it compound?
Say for example, you get 10% per week, which is too much. But so you stake 100, you get 110 next week, and then the next week you'll get 121. So it compounds week to week. So, and then the dashboard will show APY, and that's essentially the difference between APY and APR is APY compounds. So that is what people will care about. So it automatically compounds without you having to do any transactions. And then this is nice because the DAO is on mainnet, so gas prices are high, it is expensive to use. And then a lot of projects solve this by just migrating to the DAO to another layer. But the problem is we want to be on mainnet because the stuff that we want to do, for example, provide the insurance product, we want to be on mainnet because the dispute resolution protocols run on mainnet. And then these disputes are like high in value, so it's not really feasible to do them on second layer. And also the DAO itself will hold like a huge treasury and a huge staking pool. Do you really want to have it on anything other than mainnet? So you have to design everything around it being able to run on mainnet or it being feasible to run on. And then for that, you need to do two things for the user. Staking should not require them to keep making transactions because that will be expensive for them. And also regarding governance, so you want them to participate in governance, but then, well, governance essentially is voting on proposals, and then they are expensive too because it's on mainnet. So the solution to that is the delegation mechanic. So I think some other projects just implement it as a second layer thing. So you can essentially, it could be a sort of a trustless custodial thing where you can stake your tokens, but then give your voting power to someone else. But in the API3 DAO, this is baked into the DAO itself, so that, and the good thing about doing that is then you can implement it a lot more efficiently regarding gas costs. But if you tack it on later on, it will end up costing a lot more to use for the user. Yeah, so the point there is, if you, for example, staked $100 worth of API3, and then if each vote will cost you $10, then you really will not want to vote. But what do you do then? Because you also want API3 to do good because, well, you will be receiving your rewards 1 year later, and then you care about the price 1 year later. So then the solution is to just delegate your voting power to someone who you know that will govern, I guess, benevolently. Or I think it's not about good or bad, but rather like more like a political thing, in that it governs in a way aligned with your own views about what API3 should be doing if it wants to be successful. So I think that part will be very interesting because, for example, one interesting thing that happened with the whatever token was that, Shiba, the Shiba thing, where people airdropped Vitalik tokens, and then he dumped them because he didn't ask for it. So one thing with delegations is that if you delegate to someone who didn't ask for it, then you are giving them free rein about what they want to do, and then they can't really be held responsible about that because, well, you delegated to them without them asking. So I think an important part of delegation will be whoever wants delegation needs to ask for it, essentially say that, yeah, I will do such and such, so delegate to me. And then this will end up like looking more like a political party system, and then people wanting, like some people wanting to do one thing, others another thing. So, and then I think that's the only scalable way anyway. And then a lot of the discussions will happen off-chain, which is how you achieve scaling in terms of gas costs.
I don't know if this clarification needs to be made, but in case there's anyone in the audience that's confused, when you delegate, like just Burak, like when you delegate, you're not actually like giving your tokens. You're just like giving that person you're voting for. Just because the analogy with Vitalik, I'm worrying that people think that you're giving.
Yeah. Good point. Like that's not obvious.
Essentially, like if I have like 100 votes because I staked, for instance, 100 API3 tokens, and I feel like Sasha is going to represent what I believe in API3, I can just give those shares to Sasha, and Sasha can vote on all of the proposals, like probably in the way that I feel like she will vote on them. So just like as an example, you still hold your API3 tokens, and if you happen to unstake them, in this example, like if I would unstake them, Sasha would lose, so to speak, the votes I gave her.
Yeah, essentially, whoever is being delegated to doesn't have any financial reward out of it, or you don't lose anything by delegating. And then the whole point is that, I mean, you can also not delegate at all, which would be similar to just simply abstaining. And then that is also allowed and not punished, because that's also like how it works everywhere. Like in democracy, you don't force people to vote. So that is also, I think, I don't know, an acceptable position. So I wouldn't approve myself.
Yeah, I wonder how long we can talk about this stuff technologically before we have to actually start talking about like political science theory and stuff like that. I feel like eventually it's unavoidable, but who knows?
Yeah, but I'm actually also quite looking forward to just seeing, because I know it from other projects that like individuals or groups arise that like represent certain values or certain things, and they try to, so to speak, attract people to delegate to them. And this could be something that happens. It could be maybe one of the sub-DAOs that wants more influence, or maybe one person that already holds like some and governs in a certain way, and people just want to support that way because they connect to the values of it. It could be anything, but like, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how it actually evolves.
I think in general, decentralized governance is not as much as about like 100 people each voting, and then you count the votes and then you do whatever. It is more about whoever is in power is overthrowable somehow. Like there is a mechanic to overthrow them. And then like that's one of the problems with decentralized governance, is that when you have a startup, it needs to like essentially for it to have a precise direction. Like, yeah, you know the saying, like the designed by a committee, like a camel is designed by a committee, and then a horse is designed by a single person. So it is not always a good thing to decentralize, or not decentralize, but distribute the decision-making mechanism. But it is important for like when someone is making the decisions, and if they start failing, then they should be losing their power, and then essentially things should change around.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I don't think I've ever talked to Burak about this, but I totally agree. Like, especially like in the last couple of months, that I don't see decentralization as like pure, like everything is completely equally distributed. I just see it kind of like what Burak said, like something that can evolve really quickly. Like if it's not working, it can evolve really quickly. Like something like a company with a strict hierarchy, if the CEO doesn't work, I mean, yeah, there's a committee and a shareholders and stuff like that, but it doesn't evolve as quickly as a blockchain project. Like blockchain projects can just fork. I mean, that's not really the example I want to use for us, but I mean, that's just an example of how quickly things can evolve. People disagree, they fork, and I think it applies also for like a DAO, like what we're doing now with splitting up teams. It's like if something isn't working, it's really efficient and quick to evolve the project in a different direction. So yeah, so I agree with Burak on that.
By the way, insurance claim payouts also operate in the same way, in that when you pay out the claims in your governance token, you're essentially taking away governance power from the existing governors and then giving it back to the market, and then it gets redistributed. And then that essentially means that now the DAO will be governed in a slightly different way. If you pay out a lot of claims, then governance will change a lot. And then the thing is, if you're paying out claims, then that means that the governance is problematic. So essentially shaking that a bit will probably help it, because it obviously has problems. So it is in a way that like it is, yeah, it is, I guess, more than robust in that when it starts going bad, it improves itself through this like tokenomic mechanic.
Just as a general question, because we have this whole discussion going on, is there going to be a way for people similar to like maybe the Uniswap governance forums or something along those lines planned, where people can throw ideas around and have these discussions? Because I personally feel like the Telegram is going to be very weird to keep track of it. And I know, yeah, technically we could do some of this on Discord, but just like generally wondering if governance forum like Uniswap or any other governance token might make sense.
Yeah, I feel like for at least like the near future, it's going to be an absolute necessity. Like if you want to vote on something, you want to have a history of the discussion and not in like some sort of Telegram format where it's like interspersed with, you know, spams and trolling. Like you want a nice kind of a forum seems like the right approach if you're a voter and you want to inform yourself about a topic. Just makes sense. I think it's standard. I think all DAOs nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, have some sort of a forum for discussions on proposals.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, go ahead, Warwick.
No.
I was just going to add that we should probably have things in addition to that, like governance calls and stuff like that. Probably this will probably morph into a governance call instead of a community call, but yeah.
I can't really imagine what a governance call would look like. I know that a lot of people do it, but like, I mean, how would it be productive? And that like it shouldn't be always the same people speaking,
randomly selected.
Like it probably could be something like that.
I mean, at the end of the day, there are also other platforms we could technically use. I think at the beginning, when we were making these community calls happen, we actually started off with a random voice call on Telegram, where we actually gave the word to some people, and I feel like in some stages, some projects still do that, but they're very much like smaller. So that allows them to have this like call. And I feel like if this is really something that we want to do, platforms like Zoom are always an option where we can bring people in, and then certain individuals in charge of the call can then just hand the word to people that want to make suggestions or talk about certain topics.
Yeah, I think that's actually a fun problem. How do you structure a useful and fair governance call? I don't know. I'm not going to brainstorm in front of live camera right now, but I think it sounds like a fun problem to solve.
Yeah. I think the main problem is it is extremely difficult to like have a complete understanding of everything going on to be able to make the like the informed decision. And it's not about the information not being available, but like a normal person wouldn't have time to go through all the information and learn about API3 and then make a good case for like pretty much anything. So it is difficult. Like for myself, I don't do this for any other project. Like all of my time is spent on API3, and I wouldn't spend any of my time on anything else because there's a lot of stuff to do. And like, who are these people who are like coming in and then contributing to governance?
I just want to say that Rude DB.
I wanted to.
Yeah, suggested Clubhouse. Clubhouse is actually a really good format for this. The only thing that sucks, I think, is just that it's only for iOS presently. But other than that, that's actually a great place for kind of open discussion where there's a couple of people leading the conversation, but like anyone can kind of join in, and it has a really nice structure. So thanks for the recommendation.
Also, same person. I guess I can just throw this in and we'll see where this takes us. Can you update a bit on the development progress? This is very broad, but I guess we covered Chain API on that side. So
yeah, I think Chain API is by far the most, like, it goes very stably, but not even that. So our main focus has been the DAO and the staking, and I'm actually writing a post about that, how the development process went, because it went through some changes, and the solution that we came to at the end of it is to just do everything in-house, because one, we need it to be very good. We want like very good control. We want very good control over the schedule. And then it just like, it wasn't feasible when it is not done completely in-house. And for that, like we even had to pull resources from Chain API, had them work on the DAO essentially. And then, so I would say that even though I'm saying that like the Chain API development goes in a very stable way, it maybe like it's slowed down a bit for that. Other than that, I think the same applies for example, Airnode, in that the ball is rolling, in that it is like there are some. The thing is, Airnode is mostly infrastructure, and then it is difficult to show off what is happening. Though, for example, our complete migration to Terraform was, I think, incredibly important, and I wasn't expecting that to happen at all so quickly, and just because like we were able to get the people that would be able to achieve that in a short time frame, like, and then we just decided that, hey, we should just do this before version 0.1 because we can do it. Because otherwise, I was expecting it to be released on serverless framework, then be migrated to Terraform, which would not have been nice. So this is actually pretty great. And then I think, yeah, you can wait for the development report at the end of the month. I will be, I guess, writing a lot about the DAO and staking, because that's what we did all month.
Are there other like development things that we want to highlight? Sasha, you mentioned that or we mentioned at the beginning that there's like a smaller team forming that handles like the APIs.
I don't know how much detail I want to get into, but I'm currently like getting together a proposal to create like a small separate DAPI team, because like what I mentioned earlier, I guess for people that weren't here, the DAPI, so our version of kind of like an aggregated on-chain data feed, the type of code for that is quite separate from what the rest of the team is doing now. And it just seems kind of natural to split off the team, kind of like what Burak said earlier. I can't remember exactly. It makes more sense to, if you're going to create a new structure, to do it internally instead of kind of bringing people on that have no context. So at this point, it kind of makes sense to split off part of the team into a separate team. I don't know. Are we allowed to say anything about the state of audits or something? Like, I don't want to like completely avoid the topic, or no, are we not?
I mean, I was planning to have that in the report at the end of the month report.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so sorry. So it will get answered at the end of the month. I just don't want to leave people hanging, so it will. Okay, so that's at the end of the month.
Yeah, no news is good news in that regard. So
okay.
Perfect. Yeah. Do we have anything else that you guys want to bring up that the community wants to ask?
I was actually going to add this to what you have said last. So I think having separate teams is like unexpectedly beneficial in terms of time zones, because one thing I really don't like is working with West Coast people because of the like huge time zone difference. It just doesn't work unless you have full ownership over what you're doing and they have full ownership over what they're doing, and then you both know that you know what the other is doing, and then it will all be fine. But then that's not really a team. So that's essentially when you have to have separate teams. And then I think, and it is like not even twice, like a lot worse if you have an American, a European, and then an Australian. It's not even possible to arrange a call.
It's impossible.
While I was on the West Coast, I think I had like 3 or 4 work hours overlapping with Burak, and that's just because Burak worked till like midnight. So, like, there, yeah.
I mean, I have the same history of like a couple of because we have some people based in Singapore, and I myself am based in Sweden. So then I had API provider call with somebody even on the East Coast, and this was quite frankly impossible to get together. I think I personally took the call at 3 p.m, so just so that the American person can have it in the evening and the person in Singapore can have it in the morning, which was super insane. But yeah, it's.
Yeah, if we don't have anything to mention, I guess we should, like, since we already kind of brought it up, there is a development, like every month we release like a development report at the end. And so we have one coming up. So if you're really curious about like the details of what we've been up to, the state of development and stuff like that, that will be at the end of the month. Correct, Burak? I don't want to speak on your behalf because you write it.
Yeah. You will know a lot more when that is published. So there's an interesting question about the market cap data.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty significant problem, because people care about market cap a lot, and then this data is not accurate at all. Even when you speak to some other project, for example, the first thing that each party looks at is like, what is the ranking in regards to market cap, and then these are not accurate. So, for example, one thing they do is they get the total supply, and then they just subtract token amounts and some addresses. So you can say that these addresses are not in circulation, so don't add them. And then they even may not be able to do that accurately. But even when they do, this may not actually work for you, because you may have a smart contract that holds all the tokens, for example, but half of them are withdrawable and half of them are not, which will be the case for the API3 staking pool. A large part of the pool contents will not be withdrawable, but then some will be. And then how does CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap or whatever, like, how do they know that? They will not. So
yeah, I think another thing that ties into that is like, it's always how these like parties define it. I think ours is always such a great example to use there, because you have CoinGecko, which we always refer to being the most correct, and then we have CoinMarketCap that actually, for some reason, only has half the amount of tokens circulating than actually are. And it also goes back into like what people define as circulating, because if you throw that at some people would say the DAO controlled funds are technically also could be considered circulating, because a vote could make them, so to speak, circulating. There's not like a contract locking them for 3 years. It's basically vote locked. So some people consider that also circulating, and some don't for other reasons. So yeah, it's always a definition, I would say. And
yeah, I'd say that like the more complex the project is, or not even complex, but the more mechanics it has, the more difficult it becomes to estimate the actual market cap. And in that regard, API3 is like, it has a lot of moving parts. And then the tokens that you can estimate the market cap well is generally like they don't do much other than getting traded is why they're easy to assess, because it's not being used, it's not being staked, it's not used by a DAO, it's not used as collateral, etc. So we'll see how that will work. So
yeah, I mean, essentially, how will we get the total market cap data is also like, we are not actively calculating this or something like that. We're making it possible to bring other parties that calculate this and make them able to bring this on chain. So if you, for instance, if CoinGecko runs an Airnode and you trust CoinGecko's calculation of market cap, then you will be able to make calls to that API, which means you're trusting CoinGecko to make that calculation for you.
I mean, we would probably have to do the calculation for CoinGecko for them to use, which is, I think, something they do. Like, if it is complicated like this, you can say that like we did the calculation, like this much is in circulation, and there's no other way of telling it. But I'm not sure like how.
But this is more related to our token, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Like I think because the question is more about like also in general, like how are people able to get like a market cap data of certain projects, and quite frankly, you're trusting the platform that does the calculation.
Yeah, it's not like well defined or standardized what it means for tokens to be out in the market. You know, if certain tokens are locked in a contract, I mean, that it could be a completely unique contract. Like, I mean, with ERC tokens, there's a certain amount that's like you can access certain information through the interface, and then there's other ways people implement things. So it's really hard to know what's actually out in the market, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we care more about our TVL because one, it is meaningful for us. It essentially is like how much value is securing our governance and our insurance services. And then it is actually like calculable because it's price times how much is staked. And then market cap is much less important functionally, other than people wondering what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have another topic that we want to bring up? Another community question that we can take? We're almost even have an hour full. Or Sasha, you want to bring something up?
Oh, no.
Because you unmuted yourself. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if we don't have anything else, I guess what to look forward to is Burak's development update at the end of the month. And as always, we'll have these again in 2 weeks, which should be the 8th of July. And that's everything from me, if you don't have anything to add.
No, I want to
Nice.
thank you for all the questions. We thought this community call was only going to be like 30, 40 minutes, but we managed to babble on for an hour. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the questions as always. And thank you for tuning in. Burak?
Thanks, everyone.
Adios.